go potty.
Hello and welcome back to the Darkling Chronicles. My name is Becky. I hope you're happy, healthy and keeping well. And if you're not, sending you so much love. Now I hope this podcast helps cheer you up if you're not feeling great, because we are going to be talking today about Alton Towers. I had no idea it was haunted. I don't know how, because now it seems totally obvious. However, I received a message from a guy called Steve on TikTok who's very kindly shared me 3 different experiences. 2 of those experiences are with the same entity or ghost, because it's not demonic from what I understand. So I thought, why not tell you a little bit about Alton Towers and its history, and then tell you Steve's first-hand encounters, because he worked there in 2008, which is brilliant. All of these encounters can be backed up by a witness, which is what we like to hear. If you are new here, can I ask you a favour? Please can you just hit the follow button or subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. It really helps out my page and I'm so grateful for it. I'll put in the description everywhere that you can find me, all the relevant bits and bobs of information that you need. But for now, let's dive into the history of Alton Towers and the spooky stories, of course. Like me, most people think they know Alton Towers. And when they think of Alton Towers, they think of roller coasters, screaming crowds, for different reasons, obviously, music drifting through the park, and long queues in the sun. Ouch. A place associated with excitement and adrenaline, and of course, brilliant childhood memories. But Alton Towers is far older than the theme park built around it, and long before the rides, long before the crowds, long before the idea of entertainment, this land was already lived on, fought over, built upon, and then abandoned. And when the park closes, when the lights go out and the gates are locked, Alton Towers becomes something very different. We're going to explore the deep history of this land and many ghostly experiences connected to it, from its earliest origins through to the rise and fall of the towers themselves and into the modern accounts shared by staff and visitors. You'll also hear a first-hand account from someone who worked inside, which I told you about, which is Steve, and he worked there during Scarefest, which was Halloween. He wasn't a visitor, so, we can trust his account. So make of these stories what you will, but once you hear them, Alton Towers may never quite feel the same again. The story of Alton Towers begins long before the towers existed. Archaeological evidence shows that this hilltop was used during the Iron Age, and its height made it ideal for defence and settlement. Later, during Saxon times, the land continued to be occupied. This was not empty countryside, it was a place for human life, generation after generation, and by the Middle Ages the land passed into the hands of the Talbot family, which were one of the most powerful noble families in England. And over the centuries, the site evolved from a fortified manor into a grand, stately home. And what would become known as Alton Towers was expanded repeatedly. Towers were added, rooms were built, and corridors were extended. It became a symbol of wealth and status, designed to impress visitors and reflect power. The gardens became famous in their own right, and carefully planned landscapes, terraces, lakes, and walkways were created to astonish guests long before the idea of a theme park existed. But wealth and grandeur do not last forever, and by the late 19th and early 20th century, the cost of maintaining the estate became overwhelming. The house was stripped, valuable materials were removed, and eventually the towers were abandoned. And this matters. The towers were not demolished, they were left standing. Walls were exposed to the elements and rooms were open to the sky, corridors frozen in time, and abandoned places often feel different. Not because of ghosts necessarily, but because they represent interruption, lives and plans that stopped mid-flow. And it's here in these ruins that many of the stories begin. For decades, staff and visitors have reported strange experiences within the towers and surrounding areas, footsteps echoing in empty rooms, voices heard when no one else is present, and sudden cold spots, and also a persistent feeling of being watched, which is just so gross. Certain figures appear again and again in these stories, mainly including a young child and a woman often described as the Grey Lady, to understand how real these experiences feel to people who have had them. It helps to hear directly from someone who was there. So let's get into Steve's stories, and I think you're going to love them. And when he messaged me, I really felt like I was there. So I hope that you enjoy these as much as I did. But Steve says, "Hey there, my name's Steve, and back in 2008, I worked at Alton Towers during the Halloween Scarefest event. My role was Terror of the Towers host, which was held in the mansion ruins. I have 2 encounters to tell you about, but the second is a 2-parter due to it being the same entity, just a different location. So, this was a year after Most Haunted had done the Halloween special in the Towers. Just to pause there, I didn't know that they'd done that, so I am definitely going to go and find that. I will try and find it, and I'll put the link in the description for you so you can just find it with ease if you want to have a little goosey gander like I do." So he carries on by saying, "And on our induction/guided tour, the question came up about if anything did actually haunt the location. And our soon-to-be manager said, 'Follow me to a hotspot,' and started telling us about Emily." Now, I don't know about you, but if I start somewhere, I ask a manager about a ghost, and they tell me that it is haunted by saying, "Follow me to a hotspot." I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. Part of me would be excited, nervous, laughing, scared, like, let's go. But then if something happened, I'd be like, "Get me the hell out of here, I quit, see you later," you know? Now, Emily was the Earl of Shrewsbury's daughter, and she fell from a window when she got excited that her father was coming home up the driveway in his horse-drawn carriage. And unfortunately, she was only 8 years old when she died, which is so sad. So Steve says, "When we arrived at the window, the manager continued, 'Emily can be mischievous. If she doesn't like you, she will throw pebbles in your direction. And she's also been known to pull down the Christmas tree that we leave for her if the decorations aren't to her liking.'" I mean, Alton Towers are leaving this ghost kid a Christmas tree. Like, how nice is that? Like, she obviously is respected within their culture, which is actually quite cool, you know? So he says, "We proceeded to move to another location, and me and a friend were the last ones in the group to leave the room, when from behind us shot a small stone straight in the back of the manager's head." I would have laughed, especially as he just described her. He just said, if she doesn't like you, she'll throw a pebble at you. And she's been like, "Right, mate, I don't like you, have a pebble." That's so funny. He says, "I would have called it a good joke, but our group were the only ones in the building, and there was only one entrance and one exit to this location." This brings us on to the next story from Steve, and it's the Grey Lady Part 1. So Steve says, "Fast forward a few weeks, we're now all trained up and Scarefest is well underway. There's dummies hanging from the rafters to look like unalived people. Props here and there, and we've all got black cloaks on." And he's put in brackets here, this part is important to remember. He says these cloaks are over our uniforms to help us blend into the scenes. He says we each had to have a checkpoint to hold and make sure that people were safe. And he's also put in brackets, we also used to have some fun and pretend to be statues, but move as people walk past, or sometimes we even followed groups. He's put, some teenagers were taking a selfie once and shit themselves when they saw a cloaked figure standing behind them, aka me. Absolutely hilarious. I would have had some fun with that too. Although if I was there, I probably would have like kneed you or something. It was me, and I would have felt terrible for it after. But it probably would have been your fault, Steve, for scaring the crap out of me. So I'm just going to turn that back on you. So he says the golden rules were stay in your checkpoint area. Don't trigger the lasers because it would start the sounds and the lights for the next checkpoint. He says this one particular day we were experiencing technical difficulties and the public weren't allowed in until it had been fixed. We were given our break times, but we would be held on the radios just in case we forgot. So he says, I'm sitting behind my curtain, wondering how I got this lucky to be paid for doing nothing, when a silhouette appeared on the other side of the white curtain, along with a very strong smell of lavender. So he says, is that you, Jazz? She was one of his work colleagues and she'd gone on her break before Steve and was due to relieve him soon. But there was no answer. And the silhouette slowly walked through an open door, but didn't trigger the next laser. It's a bit weird, Steve thought, so he bolted out and did a running high jump over the trigger turned the corner into an extremely long corridor, and then nothing. He says, I went back to my post and finally went for a break when my manager asked how it was going. And after telling him what had happened, he got up from his seat and announced to everyone that the grey lady had been seen again for the 5th time this week. So Steve goes on to tell me part 2 of the grey lady story, and he's called this part the tunnel incident. And he says the terror of the towers was a walk-through maze filled full of twists, turns, actors jumping out on you, and an adrenaline rush that left you wanting more. I'm not sure it would have left me wanting more, Steve, but, you know, each their own. So he says, I made friends with one of the actresses. She was nice, but she was having a bit of trouble with her boyfriend. She'd often go off by herself for a bit and calm down, and nobody went after her because it just made the situation worse. She'd come back after about 10 to 15 minutes at most anyway. All the acting team were dressed in 18th century clothes, some with the same black cloaks over their clothes just like us. So, it was about 11 p.m. at night. It was pitch black outside, and me and my colleague Ben were locking up in torchlight. We were just about to make the 30-minute walk back to HQ when we both spotted something in the old servants' tunnel. It was the figure of a lady. She was wearing a black cloak and dressed in period clothes. My actress friend had gone for a wander earlier, but she had already come back, so I thought it must be another actress. There was an odd demeanour about her. She was pacing slowly from wall to wall. It was about 1.5 metres apart, but hadn't acknowledged us. We both shone our torches on her and saw the glisten in her eye and the steam coming from her breath. Ben shouted, "Go get changed, Duck, it's home time." With that, she walked with pace and shoulder barged between us. We both turned to give her a mouthful, but were stopped at the sight we just saw. She'd walked through the door that we just locked, and put the alarm on, and the key was still in my hand. I stood there frozen in a bit of disbelief at what I had just witnessed. I turned to Ben to ask if I was seeing things, but all I could see was his torch shining in all directions as he ran faster than Usain Bolt with a sugar rush, leaving me alone in the dark, but soon not far behind. What an absolutely brilliant story. How do you explain a spirit who has shoulder barged you, and not just you, but another witness to this experience, and then walked through a door? Now, the only thing I think of when I think of Alton Towers is imagine all of the electrical energy that is in the atmosphere there. You've got electrics powering rides, arcades, food stands, you know, you've got all of the kitchens set up, everything there. You've got the hotels. The land's history is so vibrant, and mixed with that powerful, energetic electricity charge, I wonder if these spirits that are there are able to just really easily draw from that to manifest in such a strong way. Because it's not very often that you hear of a spirit being able to shoulder barge someone. It's a very unusual situation to happen. Normally it's hard for them to manifest and show themselves. They can normally just make a sound, can't they? Because that's all they can muster up. But how incredible are Steve's stories here? It sounds like this grey lady, I'm not sure if it's because it was Halloween week, but it sounds like she was very, very present this week in particular. And the weeks building up to this event, because I suppose there was new people in, there was lots going on, that feeling of, you know, the Halloween setup and everything was coming in. What do you make of this story? What do you make of all 3 of these stories? Have you been to Alton Towers and had something like this happen to you? You're going to have to let me know. I have done a bit of research, and it appears that Steve's story is far from unique, because across Reddit and online forums, people have shared similar experiences at Alton Towers. Visitors describe unease in the ruins, movement seen in their peripheral vision, and the sound of footsteps where spaces are empty. Some report children's laughter near the towers when no children are present. I wonder if that could be Emily. Others describe sudden discomfort in certain ride queues or corridors and a strong urge to leave a particular space without knowing why. I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Staff accounts especially are consistent, and security and cleaning crews mention doors opening on their own, alarms triggering with no clear cause, and radios crackling unexpectedly. Oh God. Many say they avoid certain routes after dark, and not because of one dramatic incident, but because of a consistent, uncomfortable feeling. Individually, these moments are easy to dismiss, but together they do form a pattern. And Alton Towers is not just a theme park built on empty land. It is a place layered with human experience of the Iron Age settlers, the Saxon families, the medieval workers, the noble households, servants, children, lives lived, then lost to time. The towers were abandoned rather than erased, and many people believe it is places like this, unfinished and resolved, that hold on to stories the longest. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, places remember. The stone remembers, the land remembers. Sometimes when everything goes quiet, those memories feel close enough to touch. So is Alton Towers haunted? It appears that it is. But from a historical point of view, it is a site shaped by over thousands of years. And from personal accounts like Steve's, there are moments that defy easy explanation. And from countless visitors and staff stories, there is a consistency that refuses to fade there. And whether it's a psychological, atmospherical, or something beyond explanation, I'll leave it for you to decide. But next time you visit Alton Towers and you find yourself near the ruins, away from the noise, take a moment to listen, because the rides may stop, but the stories never do. Listen, if you loved today's podcast episode, do let me know. I will be recording way more. I'm going to start dropping one every single week again for you. I had a lovely break over Christmas and New Year, feeling refreshed and renewed, ready to give you all of these amazing stories. And I think you're going to like the next podcast that I do, because it's about a witch. And I'll say no more. But you take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.